The Sunset Limited by Cormac McCarthy. I just finished reading this book, and then I just finished watching the movie. And I have to say, I don't, I don't make these types of recommendations that often because very few works impress me and leave, a lingering yearning, right? So everybody I suggest that everybody should read this book and everybody should watch the movie because both of them are just chef's kiss. Chef's kiss, right? I mean, this is a screenplay, and I read it in like less than 2 hours. And if you are, a fast reader, you can finish it in like an hour and a half. It's not a difficult text. It's just a wonderful work with true characters, a true subject matter. And I have to say this, the movie is better because, of course, you have the amazing actors. You can see the setting. The sound design is impeccable. And, of course, the music just enhances everything. And I have to say, like, Tommy Lee Jones did an incredible job. Of course, everybody did, but he just owned this role of the white character, and I really relate to White's disposition and his, let's call it his belief or uh, his mental state, right? But that is not to say that Black fails in any way, because he doesn't. He is an extremely compassionate individual. He tries his hardest, right? And that should be respected. But of course, you have the two opposites. You have the duality. You have White, who is in the darkness, and then he is a defeatist, a realist, a fatalist, a cynic, and he has accepted truth for what it is. And then you have Black, who is on the other side of the spectrum, even though, and that's so interesting about him, Black, he understands what White is saying. He understands the reality of the world, of life, of humanity, and yet he still has hope, whatever level of hope that may be, and that is why he is such a wonderful person. He understands that there is only darkness, that reality itself speaks for itself, and yet he still somehow musters, the courage or the, what you might call it, he still musters the resilience to keep on going, to keep on walking, and he still faces the bleakness, the void, the abyss, the emptiness, the nothingness with, well, it is hope. It is a sort of optimism. Because if you don't have these things, then you become, of course, what White is, the professor. He sees no light at the end of the tunnel, and even if there was a light, he would reject it straight up because he does not want it. And that is why, to me at least, I vibe with the professor, with the White character. He is what a person becomes when every lie, every dream, every illusion is exposed for what it really is, right? A sick, demented joke that should not be taken seriously. And he is, of course, tired. White, the professor, is tired of it all. He is exhausted, and he has had enough. He refuses to struggle. He refuses to engage. He refuses to involve himself in this carnival, in this human spectacle, and I appreciate his honesty, right? And yet again, I have to repeat myself. This is what a person becomes, where nothing really has any influence upon a person. And I've in other videos, I kept on talking about anhedonia, which is the inability to feel any sort of satisfaction or gratification from anything, which is that nothing can really affect you in any way, that you are indifferent to it, and you don't really care for it. You simply ignore it, right? So he is truly the definition, the textbook definition of anhedonia, and a sort of despair, which brings you to the conclusion that it is better to check out of this life. And this is how this book begins. Now, it isn't really explained how his suicide is avoided. It is said that White just simply leaps into Black's arms, and then Black brings him to the apartment where of course, the dialectic discussion takes place. Of course, the main argument in it is that, you see, religion, God, whatever you want to call it, Black uses, the Bible and God's word, and, optimism, hopefulness uh, to convince White that he should not, as they say it, take a one-way ticket to the Sunset Limited, right? But of course, by the end, White cannot be pursued or convinced to change his mind, because he has made up his mind a long time ago, and now there's simply nothing left. And I just, for every cynic, for every skeptic, for every doubter, for every unbeliever, for every disappointed idealist, or, for every nihilist, this book and the movie should be, a gift, a treasure trove of just truth, because this is what the book is all about, and as well as the movie. It's about telling the truth. It's about being honest. It's about being sincere, and telling it how it is. And White just says it how it is, and we are left with an ending that just crushes any hope. And even Black is, to a certain extent, uh, you know, uh, possessed by a sense of despair, because after this lengthy discussion, White just leaves. He is engulfed by the darkness of the hallway, and Black just screams that he will be there on the platform when the Sunset Limited comes, and he just screams, yada yada, and White does not answer, because now, of course, through symbolism, it is apparent that the darkness, has claimed White as another member of the, of the fallen. And don't get me wrong, the movie and the book, they're not perfect. It takes a decent amount of time for the punchline, for the main event to happen, which is at the end of the book. But throughout this conversation, you find out bits and pieces of these two people, of these two men that are, opposites, and they both have had, their share of darkness, their share of despair, and one chose one direction, the other chose another route, one being positive, one being negative. But of course, in my view at least, and this is not a sort of insult, but Black, to me, he clings on too tight to his, holy Bible, to his belief, to God, to Jesus, and that is the only thing, I believe, that keeps him going. The certainty in his mind that there is, a divine plan, that there is a watcher overhead, uh, watching over us. Whereas White, he doesn't believe this nonsense, and he just refuses to rely on anything. If anything else, he relies on giving up. That is the one thing that he will not sacrifice. That he has settled on the decision to give up, and he makes no big show about it. He just says it clearly, and he refuses to be dependent on what you might call these illusions or lies, that being, religion, God, hope, a ray of sunshine, whatever. And throughout the book, Black tries to figure out what has happened to White for him to reach this conclusion that the only salvation is, checking out of life. And there are various details that imply certain things, but we find out that White, the professor, relied on, culture, what you might call the elegant, elevated uh, things in a society that transcends man from, just being an animal, that being, art, culture, beauty, sophistication. But now, of course, in the modern times, the professor has realized that all of these wonderful things that kept mankind afloat throughout the millennia, culture itself is about to meet its demise because, first of all, most people don't read anymore, and most importantly, most people don't value, books, culture, elegance, art in the traditional classic way where art itself was meant to inspire and lift people from the mud of their primitive existence, right? So art was meant to lift people from the despair, but now even art cannot do it because art is on its way out because of people, right? Because people do not cherish art as in the previous centuries. And this is one of the, Cormac McCarthy does a such a wonderful, wonderful job just showing these two opposites, but most importantly, he shows that a person as White, the professor, he embodies the cynic, the nihilist, as well as the what you might call it. He embodies what it really is like to be, suicidal. Suicide is when you have no hope for anything, when you do not care for anything, where nothing seems to inspire or affect you, and when the despair is so tremendous that the only way for you to have some peace of mind is to simply sleep forever in nothingness. And I, for one, do not blame him for his choice, for his decision, for his realization and his conclusion, because I very well relate to him because I'm him to a certain extent. Now, I am not all the way there, but I'm pretty close because I still have a couple of things that still give me pleasure, but who knows how long will that last? Everything is temporary. Everything will pass eventually, right? And I would say that the focus of this book is on White because he is his state of mind, his despair is more, emphasized, right? This is a cautionary tale trying to explain what such a person goes through, what it is like, and what are the reasons and the motivations why a person might choose suicide. And in the case of White, the professor, it's not about this emotional, crisis. It's not about experiencing a bad day or a series of bad days. It is a accumulation of extreme disappointments, of sadness, loneliness, bitterness, and all of these have congregated and have shaped him in the person that he is today. And it's just such a wonderful display of mastery. Cormac McCarthy obviously understands what this despair is all about, because I think that he uh, represented himself or his mindset in the character White the Professor. And this book and movie shouldn't be taken as this, this horrific, horrible, terrible thing. Of course, uh, to most people, White's mindset and his decision are appalling because most people don't really think about what life really is, what humanity really is, and they certainly do not find death appealing no matter what happens to them, because I have to it is my theory that most people, no matter what tragedy befalls them, they are so numb by this point that they just shrug it off. No matter what disaster, no matter what cataclysm befalls them, most people are just so asleep. Okay, they're asleep and they just move on no matter what happens to them, because they're stuck in their little bubble, which they rely upon, and they only seek what, let's call it, they only seek what titillates their, primordial urges. This is what life is all about. Man is an animal, just like any other animal, and just like any other animal, man strives to satisfy his urges. This is the chase, this is the purpose, and you can, put accessories and decorations on it, some fluff, but in its essential form, in the fundamental form, this is basically what life is all about for every type of life form. And in this case, White has had enough. He doesn't want to participate anymore. Nothing really pleases him, and happiness is uh, vehemently denied. Right? He denies happiness. He denies belonging. He denies brotherhood, kinship. He denies, the sanctity of life. He denies religion, God. There is no salvation. There is no absolution, etc., etc. Right? So White has reached a point where there's no going back. There's absolutely no going back for him. Nothing can save him. And what I appreciate is that he is calm, stoic, and he doesn't make a fuss, and he simply accepts it as a fact that one way or another he will, kill himself, right? And he doesn't make a fuss about it, which is respectable, right? Uh, and I have to say yet again that I favor White's perspective because it is honest, it is based on facts, and it is straight to the point. It is straightforward, and he does not strive to, bamboozle anybody. He just says it how it is. Life is a joke. It is all meaningless, and existence, being, for him at least, is a continuous nightmare, and he wants to get out as soon as possible. Hence the trip with the Sunset Limited, right? Because happiness to him and to me is, nothing special. It doesn't last. It's temporary. It's just another drug, and we are all addicts, right? Brotherhood, kinship to other people. It is folly. It is, it will end up in disappointment because nothing really stands the test of time. Nothing really endures the ravages of time, and everything and everyone will go away in the end, and not even our ashes will remain. This is the message of this character, at least, and he's so well written, right? I mean, this book should be one of your Bibles, right? Yet again, I cannot emphasize enough uh, that everybody should read this book again and again because it should open your eyes at least. And of course, most people who are, optimists, who see the light, who see the glass half full, they're gonna scorn and belittle and mock this as, being a defeatist. Their advice would be, you just gotta work out, you gotta go out in the sun and mingle with people, you gotta focus on yourself, you gotta be on your purpose, uh, you gotta be the best version of yourself, and that might help you along the way. That might prevent the despair from encroaching you. But of course, this is only temporary because, of course, especially in old age, it is plainly obvious that life is, a disease, a disappointment, a charade, a farce. And I love how Black is so shocked when White reveals to him that for the most part of his life, White has always felt this way, this bitter, this fanatical about, everything is absurd, abhorrent, uh, horrific, right? Because he has never really thought about it this way, right? Even Black has experienced some dark shit and he has seen some dark shit, but even that dark shit uh, is nothing compared to the darkness that has, possessed White. Because, of course, the greatest tragedy of all is that a person would willingly end his own life. That is the biggest tragedy of all. And in Black's experience, people do some bad stuff, but they do it because they're still alive, because they still want to be alive. They insist that they should remain alive and that they should be satisfied. And because of this motivation is why some really bad shit happens. Whereas White simply wants to stop. He simply wants to cease existence because nothing, nothing, uh, because he wants nothing. Nothing affects him. Nothing grasps his attention. Nothing grasps his consideration, right? And it's just such a um, wonderful sight to behold, because most people, they have never felt this way. They have never reached this peak, this height of despair where you're not only sickened and disgusted by yourself, you're not only sickened and disgusted and repulsed by everything else, by people, but life itself to you is not a joy. It is torture. It is a nightmare. Most people don't feel this way. That is why they still uh, live on. They still persist and pursue, right? Because, like White says, if the fear of death was abolished, then there wouldn't be anyone left alive. People would just kill themselves in droves, right? But most people, to me at least, they don't think about the real darkness of this world, which is a farce. And of course, White wants to stop being. He just wants peace, he wants solitude, he wants an endless night where he doesn't have to feel anything. He just wants peace and he just wants to be alone in silence. And I appreciate that because that's exactly what I want as well. I mean, Black keeps on talking about, life everlasting, right? And then White counters with, life everlasting. Are you insane? And I agree with this. Can you imagine that if there is an afterlife, how insane and how maddening that really is, that not only have you suffered throughout your life, but now after you are dead, you have the prospect and the possibility that there is another stage, that life goes on after death forever and ever in eternity. Like there will never be silence, there will never be darkness, there will never be solitude. Life everlasting, to me at least, is just the biggest nightmare that you can conceive of, right? And of course, this type of philosophy can only apply to people who have realized that life is unbearable, intolerable, etc. It is an excruciating deal, and some of us will not. Uh, some of us do not appreciate what's going on here, and do. We certainly hate the prospect that there might be something else afterwards. I mean, are you kidding me? Life everlasting? I mean, if there is a life everlasting, that tells me that God, if he exists, must be one of these cruel pranksters. He enjoys this shit, right? Imagine if you hate life, hate existence, and then you are met with life everlasting. If that isn't torture, if that isn't an endless nightmare, then I don't know what is. But of course, this shouldn't be taken as negativity, right? I don't understand why all of the subjects that are discussed in this book, I don't know why most people take it so harshly that they are allergic to it. Like, if you talk about something in a negative tone, they automatically assume that you're some sourpuss, that you're bitter, that you're, a negative Nancy. No, it's just simply stating the fact. And yes, you can sugarcoat things, right, in a cookie cutter fashion, which sort of camouflages the pure evil that goes on here, but you know, it is yet again only temporary, right? And of course, if you're like me, you see, there is one problem with this book, with this narrative, and you might not know what I'm talking about. It is the fact that, despite the fact that White is just so over it, he is done with life, he is done with himself, he does not fear death, he just wants it. That is the only thing that he wants. And the problem is that if I were in his position, I would not engage in this discussion with Black. I would just open the door and leave and just disappear into the darkness for good. But of course, this is why, you know, um, this improbable, incompatible uh, narrative has to happen for the book to exist. Because if it was really uh, if it was based on pure fact, this book would not exist. White would have just left without saying a word. That's what I would have done. There is something in this book that bothers me, which is that White has reached a point where he is too serious about, ending his own life and making a point that everything here is just a fucking shit show. He just revels in his own truth that everything here is just repulsive and grotesque beyond belief. What I'm trying to say is that White, the professor, is just. He takes everything too seriously, and I understand why that is. Because if you are a sensitive spirit, all of the horrible things that go on here will affect you, and that's what I'm trying to get at. White has been wounded beyond belief by this world, and that he takes it too seriously. And I was in his shoes back in the day. When I was younger, I took everything too seriously. I was exactly like him. I was the prototypical, nihilist, suicidal freak, right? But then I realized that this won't get us anywhere. The reason why I'm suffering is because I'm taking reality, the world, life, people, and what they throw at me too seriously. That is why suffering exists. If you detach, if you're indifferent to everything, if you do not care one way or another, that is where true happiness begins. Because if you detach yourself completely from everything, then the void, the abyss, will flourish within you, and you will not be afraid of anything. You will not be sad, or you will not feel lonely anymore, because you understand what it is. And therefore, the only advice that I can give to people that feel like White, that are as despondent, disillusioned, uh, disenchanted as White, and I was like this, the only advice that I can suggest to you is, step back, take it easy, don't involve yourself, right? Don't involve yourself. The best thing that you can do in life is wasted. The best thing in life that you can do is just sit on your fucking bed and sleep all day. That to me is the sign of a true genius, and the sign of a true wise person. That is the sign of enlightenment, right? Because life, folks, is worth losing. There's nothing at stake here. There's nothing to protect. There's nothing to fight for. There's nothing to cherish, and there's certainly nothing to live for, and there's certainly nothing left to die for. Okay, so this world, this life is a circus, and you should take it easy. And what is the cure for sadness? What is the cure for this bitterness, this poison that has corrupted uh, White to the point that he just wants to jump in front of an oncoming train? And the true medicine, the cure for all of these ailments, is that you should laugh at the world. Okay, you should laugh at this spectacle. That is the only way for you to uh, maintain and sustain your sanity with a bit of humor, right? Because this world, whatever it is, is laughing continuously like a maniac when we suffer, when we take things too seriously, when we just despair, right? Because we take it too seriously. I mean, what kind of half-wit would take this world too seriously, right? So that is why the only reaction that you should have is this indifferent laughter to the human spectacle. And that, let me tell you, it will happen. That is the only way that you can attain happiness if you're awake. And this is important. You have to be awake to the truth of reality, right? That is the only way that you can attain happiness, right? I mean, for a large portion of my life, I took everything too seriously. I was involved. I wanted to belong. I wanted to make something of myself. And therefore, I followed all the rules. I did all the right things. I said all the right things. And it all backfired. I always lost. I was always the loser in the equation. I was never happy. I hated myself. And I hated life. And I hated everybody else. Because I didn't understand. Why was I not happy? Why didn't I deserve to be happy like everybody else? Why isn't the world fair? So I spent half of my life in despair, insomnia, suicidal thoughts, negativity, fatalism, futility, and it didn't get me anywhere, and I had to let all of these go. I just dropped them. I dropped everything in life, and the moment I did that, I transcended to this happiness. All right, because when people get involved, you're gonna have a lot of trouble on your hands. So when I see people on the street in groups, I go in the opposite direction, and it has done me some wonders. Okay, people are nothing but trouble. Okay, but I want to end this video with a few quotes at the end of this book, because it is just so brilliant. It's just so concise and to the point, and it is truly uh, exquisite beyond belief what Cormac McCarthy does in such a short, play. So here we go. And of course, these are all quotes from White, right? And White is, it has to be said, White is my spiritual animal. I completely agree with everything he says here. But you can clearly see, you can clearly sense the bitterness that just oozes out of him as he, makes his statements. And here we go. The one thing I won't give up is giving up. I expect that to carry me through. I'm depending on it. The things I believed in were very frail, as I said. They won't be around for long, and neither will I. But I don't think that's really the reason for my decision. I think it goes deeper. You can acclimate yourself to loss. You have to. I mean, you like music, right? You give up the world line by line, stoically. And then one day you realize that your courage is farcical. It doesn't mean anything. You've become an accomplice in your own annihilation, and there is nothing you can do about it. Everything you do closes a door somewhere ahead of you, and finally there is only one door left. Well, here's my news, Reverend. I yearn for the darkness. I pray for death, real death. If I thought that in death I would meet the people I've known in life, I don't know what I'd do. That would be the ultimate horror, the ultimate despair, if I had to meet my mother again and start all of that all over. Only this time without the prospect of death to look forward to. Well, that would be the final nightmare. Kafka on wheels. Damn, Professor, you don't want to see your own mama? No, I don't. I told you this would upset you. I want to be dead. I want the dead to be dead forever. And I want to be one of them. Except that, of course, you can't be one of them. You can't be one of the dead because what has no existence can have no community. No community. My heart warms just thinking about it. Silence, blackness, aloneness, peace, and all of it only a heartbeat away. Damn, Professor. Let me finish. I don't regard my state of mind as some pessimistic view of the world. I regard it as the world itself. Evolution cannot avoid bringing intelligent life ultimately to an awareness of one thing above all else, and that one thing is futility. No, I'm not shitting you. If people saw the world for what it truly is, saw their lives for what they truly are, without dreams or illusions, I don't believe they could offer the first reason why they should not elect to die as soon as possible. Damn, Professor. I don't believe in God. Can you understand that? Look around you, man. Can't you see? The clamor and the din of those in torment has to be the sound most pleasing to his ears. I loathe these discussions. The argument of the village atheist whose single passion is to revile endlessly that which he denies the existence of in the first place. Your fellowship is a fellowship of pain and nothing more. And if that pain were actually collective instead of simply reiterative, then the sheer weight of it would drag the world from the walls of the universe and send it crashing and burning through whatever night it might it be capable of engendering until it was not even ash. And justice, brotherhood, eternal life, good God, man. Show me a religion that prepares one for death, for nothingness. There is a church I might enter. Yours prepares one only for more life, for dreams and illusions and lies. If you could banish the fear of death from men's hearts, they wouldn't live a day. What would who would want this nightmare if not for fear of the next? The shadow of the axe hangs over every joy. Every road ends in death, or worse. Every friendship, every love, torment, betrayal, loss, suffering, pain, age, indignity, and hideous lingering illness, all with the single conclusion. For you and for everyone and everything that you have chosen to care for, there's the true brotherhood, the true fellowship, and everyone is a member for life. You tell me that my brother is my salvation? My salvation? Well, then damn him. Damn him in every shape and form and guise. Do I see myself in him? Yes, I do. And what I see sickens me. Do you understand me? Can you understand me? How long have you felt like this? All my life. And that's the truth? It's worse than that. Rage is really only for the good days. The truth is there's little of that left. The truth is that the forms I see have been slowly emptied out. They no longer have any content. They are shapes only, a train, a wall, a world, or a man. A thing dangling in senseless articulation in a howling void. No meaning to its life, its words. Why would I seek the company of such a thing? Why? Damn. You asked what I was a professor of. I'm a professor of darkness, the night in day's clothing. And now I wish you all the very best, but I must go. Oh yes, indeed I do. I know what is out there, and I know who is out there. I rush to nuzzle his bony cheek. No doubt he'll be surprised to find himself so cherished, and as I cling to his neck, I will whisper in that dry and ancient ear, "Here I am, here I am. Now open the door." Don't do it, Professor. I'm sorry, you're a good man, but I have to go. I've heard you out, and you've heard me, and there's no more to say. Your God must have once stood in a dawn of infinite possibility, and this is what He's made of it. And now it is drawing to a close. You say that I want God's love. I don't. Perhaps I want forgiveness, but there is no one to ask of it. And there is no going back, no setting things right. Perhaps once, not now. Now there is only the hope of nothingness. I cling to that hope. Now open the door, please. The darker picture is always the correct one. When you read the history of the world, you are reading a saga of bloodshed and greed and folly, the import of which is impossible to ignore, and yet we imagine that the future will somehow be different. I've no idea why we are even still here, but in all probability, we will not be here much longer. And that's about it. On and on it goes. This is a wonderful book. If you are awake and not asleep, this book and the movie will be like fine wine to your ears, to your soul, right? But that's about it. If you haven't read it, read it. If you haven't watched the movie, watch it, because Tommy Lee Jones does an amazing job, and Cormac McCarthy just brings out something formidable in the white character. So, I'm a writer myself. I got a few books on Amazon. The link will be down below. If you want to support your boy, check him out. And thanks for watching. And remember that sometimes the darkness might be the better choice. See ya.